In the time it takes to finish one stiff drink, my special guest, Kate Bielinski, and I are going to discuss world traveling. We're going to swap some stories about dealing with TSA and being tourists. And we're going to find out if one stiff drink makes me better at guessing world mileages. So stick around for this episode of The Boondock Perspective,
where class is optional.
It's yet another carefree day in Maine, and you're listening to The Boondock Perspective, the show that not only loves new viewpoints, it fully embraces them. Here with me this week to chat, laugh, and imbibe is Kate Bielinski. You may have caught her at the airport during her many trips abroad, in her expansive marketing career, and most recently running the Acadia Half Marathon. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'd like you to give a little bit of background about yourself. One thing that I find absolutely fascinating is the fact that you are Polish.
Yes, I am. I was born in Poland, so fresh off the boat. And actually, even after I came to the U.S., I'm still from away. I grew up in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and then made my way up to Maine when I went to college at NESCOM.
That's a trek. That's a trek.
Oh, yeah.
Is it an unfortunate trek, or was it like a good trek? Was it a good experience?
Coming to Maine?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've got everything you could want here. Not to get all markety on you, but in Bangor, you've got the airport, you've got concerts, you've got Acadia, where you can torture yourself and run half marathons. So it really is a unique place that we live with a lot of different options.
And you've traveled friggin' everywhere.
I wouldn't say everywhere.
So you know what you're talking about. You're like, this place is pretty cool. So that should pack a punch coming from somebody as experienced in traveling as you.
It is. And as somebody who loves to travel, one of the things that I absolutely love is how close the airport is to my house. Mm-hmm. Because there's times where you land somewhere and you just are ready to check into your hotel and you've got another 45 minutes, hour, 2 hours. Costa Rica was like 2 hours to get to where I needed to go. So
you can just pull in, grab your car, and be home in time for like Jeopardy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's fast. So we'll continue the conversation, or we'll start the conversation on traveling in a second. But first we need to figure out whether or not I'm better drunk at guessing world mileages. So I'm going to give you my phone. I have maps pulled up.
Okay.
And you're going to type in any town, state, city, country, continent, planet.
Okay.
Not planet. I don't think maps will get me there. In the world. And I'm going to guess how many miles it is to get there. And we'll see whether or not at the end of the podcast I am closer.
Okay.
To a different, my guessing needs to be closer.
Okay.
It's really lame, but I've always kind of wanted to see if I actually have some form of idea of how, because to me, like, Florida is 5,000 miles away, and that's not true.
No, definitely not. All right, so I am going to go with San Jose, Costa Rica.
You just mentioned that. I should have Googled that first. I should have Googled all the places that I knew you've been.
And your phone actually wants me to go to San Jose, California, but
that's where I thought you were
we'll
gonna say.
reroute it.
San Jose. So I don't even know where Costa Rica is, first of all. Is it near Bermuda? Or is it in the Bermuda Triangle? Is it near like Jamaica?
No, it is. It's technically Central America.
Okay.
So it's below Mexico and Nicaragua. If you want, let's pivot a little bit, and instead I will have you go to my favorite restaurant in the whole world.
Is it in Costa Rica?
It is not. It is in Barcelona.
Spain? Barcelona, Spain. How long does it take me to get to Barcelona, Spain? Not how long. How far is it? Again, I have no concept of... I have no idea how mileage structure works.
Well, according to what you said earlier, it's technically closer than where you think Florida is.
It's less than 5,000 miles?
Yes.
So that's cheating. Now I know it's... Oh, man. You know what? You think that helped me, and I don't even know how that question was phrased. I want to drink this so bad. I'm dipping my fingers in and sucking on it. It's funny. I don't even know it's near there. Okay. If it's like, I'm going to guess it's like 1,500 miles to Florida, and it's like going to Florida 4 times. so like, no, because I can get to Tokyo probably 6,000. I'm going to do 4,600.
Close. 3,468.
I was going to say 3,500, and then I talked myself out of it. So how many miles was I off? 46 to...
Like 1,000 miles.
I don't know.
That's
bad.
You were in the ocean somewhere.
That's like a majority of the world. Like that's a very large part to be off. It's like I overshot Barcelona and like ended up in Russia somewhere.
So my parents live in Pennsylvania, and so to get from Bangor to Pennsylvania, it's like 600 or 700 miles. Just to give you perspective.
So yeah, okay. But I don't know how big the ocean is. I have no perspective. It's not like, oh, to get to the middle of the ocean is this amount, so I can double that. Like I have no concept of what that looks like. I can't even I don't even know what shape the Atlantic Ocean is. Like all I know is USA and like Italy.
All you need to know is it's flat, the whole world.
The whole world. It's flat. It's proof. Like, that's why they make maps. You can lay them out on a table.
Exactly.
Okay.
We don't want to go down that road.
There are some flat earthers. If you're a flat earther, I really want you to come on the podcast. Let's fight this out. So you've traveled everywhere. I consider everywhere. I've actually we've talked quite a bit in just our daily lives about like you're like, oh, I would love to do video, and I'm like, oh, I would love to travel.
Yeah.
We should just like trade lives for a while. Right. Because you get out of the country really often.
I do.
Tell me like the why. Why is that so? How did that become important to you and a big part of your life? And then how have you kept that passion alive?
So my goal is to try to travel once a month.
Out of country?
Not out of the country.
Oh, okay.
Ideally out of the country. But I try to travel once a month just to see the world, because as much as you say I've been everywhere, I've only covered a small fraction of what there is to see. Being from Poland, a couple years ago, my sister and I went and visited my grandmother, who now she turned 100 last summer. So,
oh, wow.
She's amazing. But my sister and I went and we visited my grandmother, and we went over Easter Sunday, spent the time with my family, and it had been the first time that I had gone back to Poland since I was in kindergarten. And being there and talking to other members of my family in Europe, you probably have heard that people travel a lot more frequently. It really opened my eyes to the fact that I had not really experienced much of my own Polish culture, let alone any other cultures. So when I came back from that trip, I kind of decided that I would make it a point to start traveling. And I started small. I did a couple trips here and there, and then, I decided that this was really a hobby, and now I aim for one a month, or sometimes it works out to 12 a year, because I'll double down and do multiple locations in one trip.
How do you afford that? Like, I can't get to my parents' house once a month, and they're like 2 hours away.
So I think that with anything, you decide what it is that you're passionate about, and you find a way to do it. So I got a job working at the airport for Delta Airlines, and that comes along with some benefits where I can fly either for free or discounted, and then all the money that I make there, I set aside to have as travel money. But if I did not have that, then I probably wouldn't be able to travel once a month, once a month. But I would set aside money to be able to do maybe one trip in the first part of the year, another trip in the second part of the year. And really, there are ways that you can plan it so that you're not spending a ton of money. I mean, there's tickets you can get for a couple $100s if you're connecting through a hub. Like if you fly to Paris and then you take some of the discount European airlines, you could
You
get
can do it for pretty low.
Yeah. So it really is finding a different way. I have 3
Thinking
kids.
outside the box and trying to make it
Yeah,
happen.
I have 3 kids. We're a family of 5. And I want them to be able to see the world as well and travel. And so that's why I do the airport thing. But if it wasn't for them and I was just a single girl and only had to worry about myself, you can go and you can find trips on Groupon where for $1,000 they include your ticket, all the transportation, activities, everything you need from New York City to China, and you can spend a couple days in China for, $1,200. So it's not as crazy or expensive.
Because I
as
see
a-
like plane tickets as being $1,000.
Yes.
Like one way. Like that's how I've always perceived traveling.
So I think that traveling domestically in the U.S. can be more expensive sometimes than traveling overseas.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
So I don't know exactly why, but there's a lot of airlines that offer deals. I mean, I'm sure do you use Google Flights?
I've never flown anywhere.
You've never flown
I've never
anywhere?
been. The only plane I've ever been in was like a little 2-passenger, and I was in it to take video, but no one ever told me the plane was going to take off. So I was just stuck in the back seat, dying and freaking out. That's the only time I've ever been in a plane that took off the ground, and it took off from a river. Like it never even took off from a runway.
Would you get back in a plane?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So it was a good trip at least.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it wasn't too scary. It's probably the worst flight you could have. So like anything from here on is gonna be better because I was just falling out of the sky every time the wind stopped blowing. But
The little planes are the worst because they're
Yeah.
smaller, so the wind does kind of throw them around.
So I should be
the
fine.
bigger plane, the more smooth the ride.
okay, so but I think I'm flying to Florida in November, and that'll be the first flight. We're doing a family cruise, and this is the Boondock perspective right here. This is the reason this friggin' show is named this, is because being from the boonies, we have a lot of unique perspectives. And one of the experiences is I've never been on a plane, and we really have never really been out of country. I mean, my dentist is in Canada, and for a long time my mechanic was in Canada because we were right there. But I've never really been anywhere else. Cruise to Bermuda is the only time I've ever been out of country that wasn't Canada. So we're doing a cruise to Jamaica, but we're taking off out of Fort Lauderdale. So the entire family is going. So my dad is like, we all have to fly, but he's not allowing us to go on the same plane. So he's making us take 3 different flights.
Why?
Because he doesn't want one lightning strike to knock out the entire family
jeez.
lineage. We got a legacy to upkeep.
That makes sense. I guess, prepare for the worst.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're from. So I've never really been in a plane. So I've always had a negative stereotype about it.
So that's actually really interesting to me because a lot of people that ask, and, not everyone can go or get a job at the airport or wants to go and get a job at the airport. Not everyone wants to travel once a month. But for people who are planning a trip and want to know, how can I do this a little bit cheaper? My biggest tip would be to kind of look for seasonal offers, always check Google Flights. What's really great about Google Flights is you could put in where you want to go, and Google will show you a calendar with little numbers underneath it, and those are the prices of the ticket. And there may be a couple $100 difference leaving on a Tuesday than there would leaving on a Thursday that same week. So if you have flexibility in your schedule, you could save hundreds of dollars on your ticket. And then you can also get alerts that will let you know whether or not your ticket is going to increase or can possibly decrease. And there's a little sliding scale that shows you this is on the cheaper end of what this usually costs, so you should kind of snag it now. Or this is on the higher end, and then you can kind of decide whether or not to wait
Google
it out.
Flights. All right. Dad, I'm sending you a link in a bit. When this podcast is over, I'm sending you a link. Cool. I never would have thought that there was, because I always thought, ooh, I just bleeded. Sorry. The people listening didn't know that, but the people who watched the video definitely did. That I've always had a negative experience or assumption that flying would be a pain in the ass.
So it can be. It can be. I would say that for most people, the getting there is the most annoying part of your vacation. But then there's some people who are nerds like me, and I like the airplane experience.
What's your best and worst flight experience?
Oh, wow.
Best or worst? Best and or worst?
So I would
Tell me both.
I would say probably the worst. Nobody likes when there's turbulence or, you're bouncing around inside the plane. And there was one time when we were landing in Detroit, and there's a lot of wind at that airport. And it was just a very, very windy day. They tried to go in for the landing 2 or 3 times, and each time it was just like all wobbly. And then they'd go and they'd do another circle around to try to get it from a different angle so they didn't hit the wind as hard. And they did eventually land the plane, but I mean, it was probably half an hour to 45 minutes of trying to land and go into the wind, and then have to decide we're not gonna try, we're gonna do it different. So it was kind of scary. I mean, that they've got control of the plane, but it can feel scary.
You don't like knowing that your pilot's like, no, we can't do it, we gotta take off a different way.
Yeah, and
I wonder what you'd be hearing if that guy's mic was on.
Well, they do the best to remain calm when they make their announcements. The worst is when you have a pilot that's just very quick and to the point. So you hear, they turn on the seatbelt sign, you feel like a little rumble, and then the pilot goes on the microphone. He's like, "Seatbelts, everyone, turbulence." And your thoughts like, yikes, this must be bad, because he really just kind of got that out there quick. It's much better when the pilot is calm and he says, "Everybody put on your seatbelts. We're going to experience a little bit of turbulence, but it should just be 10 minutes or so." And then it's fine. It's all in the tone. So
okay.
Pilot school, work on the tone.
Seatbelts! just freaking out. You'd be the worst if you opened the door.
Yeah.
Everybody seatbelts. Bam, closes. That'd be the worst. Oh man, now I secretly hope that happens on the next flight. That'd be awful.
But yeah, probably the turbulence thing has been the worst. I haven't had any really, really terrible experiences. I know people who have had diversions where they've had to go to different airports, had to sit on the tarmac and wait and whatnot. But luckily, fingers crossed, that's never happened to me.
Really? With the amount that you've flown, you've never been delayed or not delayed?
I mean,
diverged.
Diversions. Yeah. No, none of that. I've had times where the weather's been bad and a flight has canceled, or it's been severely delayed, or I missed a connection because of delays. But that's all par for the course.
Yeah, I'm what I'm most afraid of is getting on a plane and then having it land in JFK, where I'm getting a connecting flight, and it's just the biggest airport ever, and they're like, "Oh, your plane's taking off from this terminal, and it's 85 miles that way, and you got 25 minutes, bud." And it's like those escalators aren't moving fast enough.
So on over New Year's, I went to Trinidad and Tobago with my friend, and on the way back, I flew in through Miami and then had to catch a flight from Miami to LaGuardia. And I flew back from Trinidad to Miami on American Airlines, which was in one terminal, and I was flying Miami to LaGuardia on Delta, which was in a completely different terminal. And the Miami airport doesn't have any trains that go between terminals or anything like that. It's just a big U-shaped airport, and I had to go from one end of the U to the other end of the U. And not only that, but because I was coming back internationally, I had to go through passport control and customs before I could get back into the U.S. technically. And then I had to go back through security once
Again?
To catch that other flight in the other terminal. And I ended up having 45 minutes to do that. I have never run that fast in my life, and if I didn't have my mobile passport app, I would not have made it.
And thank God, your kids probably would have made that a lot worse. If
Yes,
you're traveling
I
with your
was
children,
alone.
that would have been a nightmare.
They would have been staying in Miami for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just
Stay
me.
here, I'll get you tomorrow.
I'm sending someone. Mama's got you. Just book it into me. No, I I really am looking forward to traveling more. I really want to see Rome. I want to see a lot of places in Italy, and I want to see a lot of places in France. And really anything that had anything to do with the Renaissance era, like that's where I want to be. I want to go experience that history. I think Germany would be really awesome.
Yep.
Iceland, I think, is actually really high on where I want to go.
I have not been to Iceland yet.
You can spend 9 days there, and every half day, every day, it can be a completely different terrain, a completely different experience. So I think that'd be really cool. I have a lot of friends that have been there now, and I'm just like really jealous seeing the video and the photo that comes out of it.
It was one of like the really hot spots for a while where everyone you knew was going to Iceland.
Yeah, well, that's still happening for me. I need to be there.
I haven't gone yet.
I need to be there. Why did you? Why is? Why? Excuse me. How did you come from Poland to the U.S.? Like, where? There's got to be a story there of how.
We don't talk about that because of like some legal things. No, just kidding.
I'm undocumented.
So.
That would be mind blowing on this podcast.
So the way that it works.
We got her, boys. Woo! Everyone busts in. SWAT comes in and takes you away.
So the way that it works, or it did back then, back in, I think it was like 89 or 90 when we moved. Basically, there's so many, I don't know, applications for citizenship that the United States gives to various countries. And so you have to apply on a certain day, you have to have all your paperwork on a certain day, and then they essentially do kind of like a lottery, and they choose, who gets to come. And my parents put in for it, and at first we didn't get it. But because of all the processes that you have to go through and the qualifications, some people that were chosen didn't make the cut. They didn't have a sponsor, or they didn't have a job when they came here, or whatever the qualifications were, they didn't make it. So they contacted us, and, we had all our ducks in a row. And so my parents packed up me and my little sister, and we moved to New Jersey and stayed with, I call him my uncle, but he's really more like a second cousin. We stayed with him in New Jersey for a couple months, and then got our place in Bayonne and lived there until we moved to the Poconos. So it was not anything really that exciting, but...
You said you went back to the motherland 2 years ago?
I did. So the first time I went back was right before kindergarten, and then after that, it had been years. So my sister and I went over Easter Sunday and visited with everyone. We flew into Warsaw, which is the capital of Poland and where most of my family lives. And then we took a train down to Krakow, which is in another area of Poland. And there's a lot of...
I know where Krakow is.
It's, I'm going to say it's south, but don't quote me on that. I have been to places, if you asked me to point them out on a map, I don't know if I could.
Wow. I've heard that that dog bark 4 times in its life. And that is a bitch bark. But you are the least intimidating dog I've ever heard. All right, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so we took the train down to Krakow and explored there, and it was a really nice experience, the family piece of it, but also the traveling piece of it. Because I'd gone and visited other states here or there on a short road trip, but it's definitely a different experience to be in a different country and not know really where you're going or what you're doing. We didn't plan too much because we were going to go see family. And I will say that since that trip, I've definitely learned a lot. Like I didn't have, my phone wasn't working on that trip because it was my first time going abroad and I didn't know what I needed to do. Now, I answer emails and make calls from abroad with no issue because I know how to get Verizon to turn on my international calling. And I think back then it wasn't as easily available, but forget where we were going with this.
I just wanted to know how the motherland was. What was it like going back home? What was it like, seeing where you came from without knowing without really knowing where you came from?
So it was really great to go and see my family, cousins that I hadn't seen since I was a little kid. And what's really great about Poland is it's a good mix of newer metropolitan city, and then you've got the old part of Poland. And what I thought was very interesting, because so much of Poland got destroyed during the Second World War, when you go into the heart of Warsaw and you see this newer section with these high-rise buildings and hotels and casinos, you think, well, that's probably newer construction. But actually, some of the older parts of the city are actually newer construction because they were rebuilt. And they looked at pictures from what those buildings looked like. They went in and they tried to, rather than reconstructing them completely, do them in a way where it still had that authenticity and still looked like the older buildings. So parts of Old City in Warsaw are actually newer than parts of New City in Warsaw.
That's interesting. So like they played to their they played to understandings of their history.
Yes, yeah.
To make the city more appealing architecturally.
Yeah, so when they rebuilt pieces,
I'm really freaking proud of how I worded that.
when they rebuilt pieces, they didn't. So you weren't looking at a building that was 200, 300, 400, maybe even more years old and seeing it looking brand new as the day that it was built. They paid attention to, if like pieces were missing here or there, they rebuilt as much of the structure as they could while still keeping to what they saw in photographs, aerial shots, and different architectural sources.
Interesting. Well, I hate to be the guy that disrupts a naturally flowing conversation, but I do need to do a sponsorship. And this one is awesome because it's mine. So you're getting married. There's a lot to do. And hey, maybe you've already done some of it, like snag a venue, officiant, caterer, florist, photographer, and all of those other essentials. But wherever you are in that process, don't forget to consider videography. Your day will undoubtedly be special, and Northern Oak Media wants to capture every moment, every word, and every smile. Now, we know that there has always been a stigma around videography, but things have changed. This isn't Uncle Joe with a shoulder camera 20 feet back, struggling to focus and too far away to hear anything. This is Northern Oak Media, a film and video production company putting its knowledge of cinematography to work. Using an abundance of camera angles, crisp audio recorded on cleverly hidden microphones, vivid color schemes, picturesque aerial drone coverage, and emotional editing techniques, we give you the opportunity to completely re-experience your big day with every viewing. And yes, we have photography packages as well. See for yourself what Northern Oak Media can do for you by finding us on Facebook or by visiting northernoakmedia.com. So you must have some really good stories with the amount that you've traveled about dealing with TSA, the Total Shit Association.
So the TSA is actually not as bad as people make them out to be. And actually, if you don't already follow them on Instagram, because they post some really funny things of
Are you telling me the TSA has a Facebook page?
Instagram. The TSA has an Instagram account, and they post all kinds of stuff that people, like stupid things that you would never think to bring through TSA. People have brought them, and so they'll post them, and they're kind of funny. It reminds me of the Bangor Police Department Duck of Justice kind of thing, where they put some humor behind it. But yeah, it's not that bad. I got TSA Precheck, which anyone can do. You do it online, and then you get fingerprinted. It's like $85, and it's good for 5 years or so. And it helps you skip the long line. You don't have to take your shoes off. You don't have to take your laptop out. You don't have to take all your liquids out and put everything in separate bins. You literally just put all your shit on the belt and you walk through, and that's it. And it saves you a ton of time.
Why aren't more people doing this?
Well, because I think that, like you said, you haven't traveled a lot.
Yeah.
So most people don't know that it exists. And when they see that it exists, because they're at the airport and the line is super long and they see the short TSA line, they're like, ugh, I should get TSA Precheck, but then they're not traveling again for a couple months. So
Yeah.
it's mostly business travelers or people that travel often. But for $85, I mean, for 5 years, it's definitely worth it because it saves you a ton of time.
What's the check? There must be a screening process or something for that.
You apply online, you go and you get your fingerprints done. When I did them, it was behind the Subway and Brewer at like Identigogo or whatever the fingerprinting place is called. And it's super quick. Like you come in, do your fingerprints, and then they email you your number and you put that in and it prints out TSA Precheck on your boarding pass and you're free to go.
That's interesting. I never would have known that. So tips and tricks of the trade, everyone.
Yeah, it's great. There's been times where I've gotten to the airport and from the door of the airport to my gate, I've gotten through in like 10, 15 minutes because the TSA Precheck line has no one in it and you literally just walk right through.
That is awesome. I was I went to New York City 5 weeks ago on a total whim. Like my friend was like, "Hey, we are going to New York City. A friend bailed. We're going to celebrate my friend's birthday as well as film some stuff. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "I guess so." Like I'd never been, and I'm not much of a big city person, but we went, and we ended up doing like everything we could. We did the International Auto Show. We did Times Square at midnight. We did Rockefeller Center. We did Empire State Building, Central Park, bike tours, World Trade Center, pizza, bagel, Indian food. Like we did as much as we possibly could in 24 hours. But we went to the World Trade Center, and we were at the memorials, you know what I mean? And we're looking at the museum, and then we're like, the next thing we do before we leave the city, we have time for one more thing, maybe two. What do you want to do? Let's go to the observation deck of the Empire State Building. So we Google it, and we discover it's really far away from us, and also that the World Trade Center had an observatory, and we were right there. So we're like, let's see what's up. Let's see if we can get in there. And this is, to me, this is still a very sensitive topic. This is a very sensitive issue. It's like they must have insane security now, and they must have insane regulations and be very specific about how this place operates. And from the time that we made the decision to get up to the top to the time that we actually got to the top was less than 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Because we walked into the building, bought a ticket. The next show was like 5 minutes away, which they do showings like every 15 to 20 minutes. And we just got in an elevator. Elevator went up, and then we were experiencing the top of the city.
Oh, wow.
And it blew my mind how fast that was able to happen. I don't know where that relates to TSA or what the difference is, but I had to go through but there was still security, and I had to walk through, and I had to take my belt off and everything. And then on the other side, I had to get scanned because something set it off. I don't really know what it was. I might have like a piece of hair from car stuff, a piece of metal in my hair.
Trying to bring your pocket knife through.
Yeah, I mean, I have it on me most of the time, but I was very careful not to bring that to the city. But it was very quick, so I've always wondered if there was an ideal situation where TSA would actually work as effectively and efficiently as it did there. So it's nice to know that there is options for people.
There are, yeah, and by no means am I saying get TSA Precheck and show up 20 minutes before your flight. Do not do that. But it
get
is
there 2 hours, go to the bar, have a burger.
It is. It's a good way to kind of expedite it for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Have any horror stories traveling? That's a good facial reaction. Yeah. Okay. Good.
So it's not really a traveling or in transit story, but 3 years ago, my best friend and I went to Barcelona and Paris for New Year's. We flew into Barcelona, spent some time there, and then drove up to Paris. We rented a car and drove along the coast, stopping at a couple different places. And
Well, that just sounds like an incredible experience, automatically.
And we rang in the New Year in Lyon, or however you pronounce it in French. I don't speak French.
Probably. I think you got it.
But it's a really, really beautiful French city. We rang in the New Year there, and then we got in the car and we drove to Paris. And our first stop, because we were hungry, was this restaurant, and we were right around where the Eiffel Tower was, right in the middle of everything. And I ended up ordering a tuna steak with vegetables and a glass of wine.
Tuna steak with veggies. Okay.
So
I'm following it. Now I'm curious where this goes.
I start to feel kind of lightheaded and whatnot. And I think, well, it's because we've been traveling all day. We've been driving. I haven't eaten a lot. So what do? I down my tuna steak. Like I just eat the whole entire thing. And then my face starts turning red. I start getting a little more lightheaded and I start to feel like a weird thing in my throat. So I'm telling my friend, like, we need to get out of here. Like, I don't know, like, I'm not feeling great. So we get the check, we get on the subway. By this time, like, my tummy is starting to not feel great. I'm not doing good. So it turns out that I had histamine poisoning, which mimics a food allergy, but also is like food poisoning. So it's like a mix of the two because an allergy takes a long time, the allergy is quick, the food poisoning takes a while to kick in. So I had both.
That's disgusting. That sucks.
But at this point, I don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
And what could have caused it, like, because I've never been allergic to anything and there was no way food poisoning would happen that quickly. So I spent that night at a French hospital.
Awesome.
In the emergency room. And barely anyone spoke English. I waited like 6 hours for a doctor that spoke English. And this was we just took a cab to the closest hospital in Paris. I can't speak for all the hospitals in Paris, but they have universal health care, so it's free there, and the hospital kind of looked that way.
Okay. I'm following. Just a little shanty.
Yeah. So, I got my ultrasound, everything was fine, but the next morning we were exhausted. So my first time in Paris, I spent more time in the hospital and then resting than I
at
did
least
actually.
Get alcohol poisoning.
Right? So that was probably my horror story. And then the next time that I went to Paris was with my husband and our kids. And I found that restaurant and I took a picture going like in front of it and sent it to my best friend. Just
like, not going back in there.
Not going back there.
I would always have had a moment to be like, I'm going back there. I'm gonna try it again, just to see if it's different.
It took me a good 2 years because I love sushi. It took me a good 2 years to be able to eat tuna sushi again.
To just
after
trust
that,
it.
yeah.
Just the sea is not my friend. It's funny. So this was in Paris?
This was in Paris. And so, not to take over here, but the other thing that I found really interesting about Paris was when you order food, here you're used to sitting and waiting. It's like 15, 20 minutes before you get your food. There, you order your food, and 2 minutes later, like they bring you your food sometimes before they bring you your drink. So I think they prepare it ahead of time.
That's scary. That sucks. Was that your experience in like every restaurant? Like when you go to,
if you went to a really, really fancy restaurant, I'm sure it would be different. But that was the lower to mid-level restaurant.
Like the French version of Chili's or something?
No, not even. Like a step above Chili's.
Okay. What's a step above Chili's? Ruby Tuesdays? I don't know. No, Chili's is pretty good.
No, it was all like
sponsored by Chili's.
It was all local places and whatnot. And the menus in a lot of Paris are all in French.
Yeah, I'd assume so.
But in a lot of other countries I've been to, you can ask and they have an English menu. In Paris, I think they don't really love tourists that much.
That was going to be my question.
And I hate to say that because I don't want to. Not everyone dislikes tourists, but it's not very tourist friendly, especially to those who maybe don't speak French or read it or know what they're ordering.
Wow. Were there any like bad experiences while you were in France? Because they are notorious. I mean, they're always depicted in the movies, and whenever I know somebody that went there, they always have the same story of like a cab driver not refusing to drive them, or somebody like being really rude to them at the hotel and like upcharging because they're American. Like I've heard a lot of stories like that.
So again, I wouldn't overgeneralize it because there were just as many really, really great, super friendly, nice people that I met, and we've had really good conversations with them. But Yes, there's been times where we've sat down in a restaurant and, the waiter comes and takes everybody else's order around you but doesn't ask yours. Or they come by like the second you sit down before you even get a chance to read the menu and they expect to have your order. And if you're like, oh no, I need 5 minutes, you can try flagging them down. Sometimes they don't really come back. Yeah, but I don't know how much of it is necessarily that they don't like tourists and how much of it is just our cultural differences where, we sit down and we order a drink, we look at the menu, and then we order. Whereas there, a lot of times people just come in and they know what they want. The menus are smaller, there's less options. And then it's the opposite when you go to cafes and whatnot. The service there is a lot slower because the culture is that you sit down, you have your coffee, you have your croissant, you have a conversation.
Cat is massacring my couch right now.
And so there's not that rush. And so one of the comments I hear from people all the time when they travel internationally is that service is slow, but it's not necessarily that service is slow. It's just at a different pace than we're used to because the meal is an experience in a lot of countries that you go to.
I think that when I travel, which has been once to New York City, I tend to go with this mindset of like, okay, while I'm here, I'm not going to allow money to dictate my decisions. Yeah. And I think that in order to have a successful trip, I feel like you need to have that. And that's a mindset that I've been recently trying to implement. Like, okay, I saved money to come here. Like I have X amount of dollars and it's enough to not only get by, but enjoy myself. So at the top of the World Trade Center, I saw a bar and I was like, I'm gonna have a beer and I'm gonna look out the window over New York. So I had a beer. It was $15, but I never even questioned it. I didn't notice until I looked at my bill a week later. I am very willing to just go have food and go to these bigger restaurants because I want to experience a better meal. Like I of course I could go to the bagel stand, but I'm gonna go to the bagel place. Yep. You know what I mean? Of course I could go to the pizza place. I'm gonna have the best pizza. I'm gonna try and go out of my way to make sure I can fully enjoy the food because food is a huge part of traveling. It's a very large part of culture.
Yep, it's my favorite part. And so to your point, if you are trying to travel on a budget, you need to really think about what it is that's important for you and is going to make this a huge experience for you. Some people want to go and they want to stay at the best hotel possible, but then they won't spend money to do different activities. Whereas I would rather stay at a hostel or a cheap hotel because I know I'm just going to be dumping my stuff and sleeping there, and then spend money on an activity or to go out and eat. Because food, like you said, is part of the experience for me, and I could eat 10 meals a day when I'm traveling just because.
Yeah, I can eat 10 meals a day, and I have eaten 10 meals a day when I travel. Like, I have to. I have to try it all. I'm like, oh, falafel, I've never had that. I'm going to have that. Oh, what's that? Is that a scone?
So you go places where they're known for their cuisine. I mean, Italy obviously is a big one. You've got different Spanish cuisine, Mexican cuisine, which I love. I could eat in Spain all day. I love tapas. But then you go places where they're not really known for a cuisine. Like I'm going to Scotland and I really don't know.
That's it. That's all I know.
Yeah, but that's it, right?
Yeah.
And so my best friend is planning the trip, and I've challenged her to find us a Mexican restaurant that we can go to while we're in Scotland because that's my favorite type of food. And as crazy as it sounds, I want to try different Mexican food all over the world.
So I want to go to every country across the planet, and I want to try their Mexican food. I wonder what Mexican food would be like in Tokyo. You've been to Tokyo, right?
I have been to Tokyo.
How was the Mexican food?
So actually, I broke my rule, and in Tokyo, I did not get Mexican food in Tokyo.
I'd be surprised I didn't have it.
So my trip to Tokyo, we brought our kids. And traveling with kids is a completely different experience than traveling with adults. So we did not really, we had ramen and we had different noodle type dishes, and that was fine. But we didn't go to anywhere that was really fantastic sushi. And it made me so sad that when I got back the next day, we went to Yoshi and had dinner because I felt like I was missing out.
Yeah. I never really was into any Asian cuisine at all, and I've been so into it lately. Like, I still don't like sushi or sashimi, like, because I don't really like the textures. But I've been way more into like Korean food and Chinese food and Thai. You can get a good noodle from a Thai place. It's just worth maybe potentially getting sick.
So restaurants in different countries are amazing, and all the prepared food is really amazing. But the other thing that I like is going into little stores. Like, I'll go into a grocery store, just a random grocery store, when I travel, because I like to see how people grocery shop in other cultures and other countries. And it's the products that they have, the way that the stores are kind of laid out. You can see, do people shop for the whole week? Do they shop just for a day or two based on how much is in their cart? And it's just really interesting looking at that in comparison to kind of what we're used to, where, we go do our weekly grocery haul and come back with like a trunk full of stuff. So
Yeah, I'm good for a month. And growing up in Jackman, we had to do grocery shopping pretty much by the month. It was like 90 miles away. You never really go down the river to the grocery mat. And you would just grab everything. You grab 4 loaves of bread and you put 3 in the freezer. You'd grab like 17 bananas and you'd put 10 somewhere where they can like delay the aging process. And it was kind of like that. You'd buy meat by the pound, rice by the pound, and you just go crazy. 5 things of mayonnaise, like you'd have to survive. Otherwise, you're not going to get some of those items. And there are places in Jackman where you can get small stuff, but I love seeing the videos of like the grocery stores I think it's in Japan, where it's like fish markets and there's just like live fish. They're not live fish, but there's just fish on ice everywhere.
Yep, they have that. So a lot of places you go, they have markets where they have all kinds of fresh fruit, different meat. Some places you'll go and it'll be a whole like in Barcelona, there's a whole entire market where it's almost the size of the mall that we have here, where you just walk through and there's all these different vendors. Some sell spices, some sell fish, some sell vegetables. And then in between, they have different small restaurants peppered throughout. And it's an experience. Going to the market is an experience for some people. So I like going to those and always picking up different things that I've never seen here. And then I try to bring back some weird, funky food.
I brought home
when
some
I
lamb's
can.
feet.
No, I try to stick to like the dry packaged goods, usually involving chocolate, but
That's a good choice.
yeah.
So what are your tips and tricks for packing? Because that's a very difficult thing to navigate.
So if you can know ahead of time what you want to bring, plan your outfits, plan everything that you need so that you can pack in a small suitcase, a small roll-on suitcase that still qualifies as a carry-on. Carry it on. Make sure that you have your liquids and all of that separated so you don't have TSA issues. And then bring with you a foldable bag, like one of those backpacks that's just teeny tiny and then you can unfold it and it's a duffel or a backpack. That way, if you buy cool stuff, you can always check your bag on the way home, the one that has the wheels. And then you can put alcohol in it, or if you buy food that you can't carry through TSA, you can put it in that bag and then check it, and then use a little duffel bag for all your dirty underwear that nobody cares about anyway. And that way, worst case scenario, if the airport loses your bag, you've got some time to recover it versus being stuck on your trip without any clothes to wear.
And you've never lost luggage?
I have never lost luggage. And if you want to know how to get all your stuff into this little bag, I buy those vacuum seal bags and I stuff them, vacuum seal them. They come with like a little clippy thing and then you just roll them up and it saves you a ton of space.
What if they make you open that? You're just screwed.
So they shouldn't make you open that, because if they go through your stuff and they see that your bag is sealed, they won't make. I don't know. I've never had anybody make me open it.
Oh, what? This is the vacuum that I used to seal the bags. You're just dragging along this friggin' Hoover.
No, but it's got like it's got like a little Ziploc, so you can roll it. And actually, it's really funny. So when I roll it and I try to get all the air out of it, I'm like laying down and like wrestling with the bag to get all the air out. But it does. It saves you a ton of space. And then you can fit all your crap in this one little bag and bring it with you and not worry about losing your luggage. And you don't have to wait at the baggage claim for like half an hour.
That's pretty friggin' schmat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as I finish my drink, it symbolizes that the conversation is coming to an end. So before we finish, we need to find out once and for all whether or not one drink of alcohol made me better at guessing world mileages. So it's time again for you to input some random destination into maps, and we'll figure out how far away it is from here. And I'm gonna guess this, and I'm gonna be more accurate. I need to be closer than basically 1,200 miles.
Mm-hmm. So I am going to have you navigate to the Zurich airport.
I don't know where Zurich is. What is that in Iran?
It's in Switzerland, and the reason that I chose this is because the first time that I went to Switzerland, I thought that it was closer to Sweden, but it's not. It's actually like near Austria and the Alps. So I was way off on my.
I still don't know what side of
map.
that is on Europe. Is it closer to like Wales or is it closer to like Poland? All right. Well, if Spain was like 35, then I would just do 35 with a slight angle and do like 37.82.
35.46.
That's not fair though. That's a hard question because I can't be better because now I had perspective. Once I knew where. So you put me somewhere on the opposite side of the globe.
All right, I will take you to somewhere I have always wanted to go and have not yet.
Haiti.
Let's go to the Sydney Opera House in Australia.
Australia?
Ooh.
I should know this. My roommate just got back from Australia last night. I should really know more about Australia. He goes there pretty frequently. I know it's a pain in the ass flight.
Oh, yeah. I saw the number, and now I know why I have not been there yet.
Oh, that makes sense. I lose a whole day of my life in travel alone. I've been told that you lose a day.
You do, yes. A day, sometimes a day and a half.
Yeah.
Actually, coming back from Tokyo, that's how it was. We left Tokyo at 7 p.m. and then landed in Hawaii at 7 a.m. So we lived Friday twice that week.
Yeah, I was about to say there's a lot of weird situations like that. I think that's funny. Oh God. It's like 3,500 miles there, and then they had to travel there by boat when Australia was founded from Britain. So I'm going to do 3,500 miles to probably get you to like Madagascar. And then from there to Australia is probably another like 2,500, maybe 3,000. I'm going to say 6,200. Is it more than that? Is it 8,000 miles?
More than that.
It's more than 8,000 miles?
It's an insane amount of miles.
Are we talking about over 10,000 miles?
Yes.
It's over 10,000 miles to get to Australia?
I didn't believe that either. It's 10,191 miles.
Oh my God. Okay, well.
That is
I got
far.
worse. But you get perspective out of the equation. I still have no friggin' idea what I'm talking about. Wow.
It's okay. The great part about traveling is you don't have to know how far it actually is or how to get there. You
just have to fall asleep on the plane.
Go to the right gate.
Wow.
And you'll be all set.
That's insane. I think it's time for you to have a shameless plug. You travel so much. Is there anything going on in your life that you might want the people at home to like keep up with you with? Just like, oh, check out this.
So yes. I love to travel. I have a lot of stories to share, and I love writing. So a blog has always been on my list. I finally have one up. It's still a work in progress, but for travel tips, inspiration, and some of my stories and adventures, go to navigatingtravel.com.
Awesome. Go check the stuff that she set out. Actually, it'd be kind of cool. I think a lot of people could benefit from a travel blog, especially with tips and tricks, because already I think that just if people listen to this blog, they may treat traveling differently,
Yes.
especially TSA.
Yeah, and a lot of things seem a lot more difficult than they are, and it's easier once you can read about somebody's experience, see what they've done, get some tips, and realize that it's not as bad as you think. It's not as expensive. It doesn't take as long, and it's not as much of a hassle, and it can actually, the journey to your destination can be part of the fun.
It's the 21st century, people. The world is truly connected. All right. Well, remember, on top of being available for your viewing pleasure on YouTube, you can also find the podcast on iTunes and Libsyn, hopefully Spotify soon. Also, be sure to like the Boondock Perspective on Facebook and share with your friends for highlights and sneak peeks behind the scenes. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.